In 2019, just to give you context, I went on a quest. And that quest was to find organizations that actually made sustainable change. And that quest has brought three things. First, sustainable, happy, profit. And that is the book, how products and organizations, in fact, can thrive. Two, the Agile Sustainability Manifesto, how we Agilists evolve our craft and guide our decision. And then three, the Agile Sustainability Practitioner 4 weeks hands-on program with the Coalition of the Willing. So before I get ahead of myself, that's what we are getting ourselves to do. And within 30 minutes or so, which is not a small task, we're going to look at the business case for sustainability, also debunking top excuses, also the responsibility on shaping efficient, modular, natural capital-aware products and systems. And we'll also explore those myths and perspective, especially on finance side of things as well, so we can equip ourselves. As Agile practitioners, we are key players. So I want to give you something to chew through those myths of resistance. As Marie said, I'm Ines Garcia. I'm an Agile and climate coach, circular economy professional from Cambridge University and biomimicry practitioner. And I'm also part of what I mentioned, the Coalition of the Willing. And that's a professional collaborative alliance to move the needle from theory into practice. And that's for the biggest challenge that our species has faced to date. And that, as Agilists we know, is the hardest step in any change, move from theory to practice, crossing that chasm from theoretical agreement, yeah, we need to do something, to the actual, tangible, impactful action. So that's our quest in the coalition. Now, often when we look at sustainability, we looked at either or from the angles of politics or population, right? The individuals, the masses, what can we do? And then politics, and we know that policies and laws are too slow and have loopholes. So we need to be more agile. And what is obvious to me, and what has come even more obvious over the years, is that bang in the middle, we have organizations, and that's companies, right? Think about that we have 333 million registered companies worldwide, 333 million. That's a huge potential from evolving our practice and to make a dent, a positive impact in big numbers, 333 million versus 249 country codes, right? And that's where we come in. And organizations, companies are composed of individuals. And we can do good and we can do well. In fact, it's more rewarding. And not only that, is that we are incredibly privileged, not just for being here today, but as Agilists, we have access and we have ease. We have access in terms of the key areas of the organization, and we have ease, skills, tools already under our belt. So it is our responsibility. So I did go on that quest, and it all started really to make my own company better. So if I could downscale those big sustainability ideas in a way that it works for my one person limited company, then I will be able to downscale, side scale, upscale to my customers. And I'm not going to lie, going through the motions, it was really hard, especially when finding companies with a huge dissonance between narratives and operations. That's greenwashing. But the ones that I did find had very clear strategies, practices, and few patterns sort of emerge. And that's really where Sustainable Happy Profit came about, a way for me to share the findings beyond one session, one customer, one talk at a time. So what I would like to do now, at lightning speed really, is take you through 3 different industries, 3 companies, examples from this quest. So this is an energy company. And just within 10 years, they managed to turn around their proportions. An energy company that now almost 85% of their supply is renewables. And they have huge operations. If you think about already giving energy to 10 million people and expected by 2030, that magic number that we talk very often of about 50 million. And one of the things that they did, it was anchored. They anchored so that they could change course. And also one of the things I wanted to talk about is that they did a sort of like list of all their assets, and every end of life was taken as an opportunity to invest towards where they wanted their vision. And going through these motions not only gave them an opportunity to increase the market share, but also the return of profits. So you can see this in the bottom line. So that's energy. This is an example of a servicing company, a bank, and I think the figures speak for themselves. Essentially, what's called ethical portfolios. That I think that's what all portfolios should be. But anyway, the ethical ones are performing better. And now, one of the key things that I think we also need to ask ourselves is, aside of halving our emissions by 2030, we all need to do that by the legally binding Paris Agreement. Yeah, half emission as a team, company, product, organization, country, sports club, whatever, each one of us individual level, half our emissions. Yes. And what they did was finding where they could also have their biggest impact. So yes, halving emission, and for them especially, what became apparent is that through niche funding, they will be able to support and align their operations with where they could have the biggest impact aligned with their purpose. Right? So think about your own company, think about your own efforts, where can you have the biggest impact, as well as halving your emissions. And for me, also, this particular company, they did a lot of different partnerships, one with more than 150 organizations, including the WWF. So if we think about Agile, not just customer collaboration, but whole value chain collaboration. And it's really in line with Sustainable Development Goal 17, which is partnership for the goals. So we want to go far, we better go together. And as Agile people, we know what a lever that can be. And then the last example over here, what we have is, so we talk about energy, we talk about servicing. This, I wanted to give you a manufacturing sort of physical product version as well. And is a manufacturing company. And not only they managed to reduce their absolute emissions by 70%, but also what I found very interesting with them as well is that they created their own framework. And we know as Agilist frameworks can be very helpful. And this idea that every employee not only looked at as a problem solver, but also supported in a way that they could in fact be a problem solver. And I'm sure here in the room, we have many examples when we do in fact value individuals and interactions over other things. All right. So you probably are eager because you're here to start bringing these subjects into your own organization, and you are going to face resistance. So this next little section, what I want to do is equip you to how to ninja, hence the picture, the most common myths. I sort of picked my top 5. Let's go. Right. First one is that people don't care. Why bother? People don't care. Hold on a second. People do care. One, because we wouldn't be spending this time together. But also 75% of the workforce will refuse to work for a company that does not have customer social and environmental responsibility. Also, customers are willing to pay more. Investors are eager to find those ethical portfolios, which are not easy to find. And this makes me also think about, for the ones that have read and in fact remember the about section of the Agile Manifesto, really building those organizational communities that we want to work for, that we want to be part of. And those are our key stakeholders, if you think about it. So look, employees, customers, investors, right? People do care. Myth 2, ooh, this sounds expensive. All right. It may come also as excuses of, oh, we don't have funds, or there is no allocated budgets and like excuses. But let's look at this really, because it's efficient. From last year, renewables are cheaper. And not only that, but have reduced long-term cost. Think about maintenance, extraction, transportation. It's not only when you do comparison of kilowatt hours, and we don't tend to think about these other costs. So that's energy. But let's look at materials. If we think that 90% of the materials are wasted, keep them in your value stream, or don't even put them there to start. That is saving cost savings. And there is a particular fact that really stood with me, which is there is more gold in e-waste, which is stuff like this we no longer use, more gold than left in the ground. I mean, what are we doing? Okay, energy, materials. And then I have this motto of leaving the place better than how I found it. The place, the products, the services, the people involved. Now, we don't have time to talk about the current state of our food systems. Maybe that's a session for next year. But this idea of regenerative by design, for example, if we look at regenerative agriculture, reduces greenhouse gas emissions, removes or keeps carbon within the soil, increases biodiversity, improves water, air quality, generates higher returns, and it creates a resilient system. So if something happens over here, you can still feed your nation. So for me, we look at this, ain't not too expensive. If we really are to harness change for competitive advantage, this is it. The myth of, political and market systems, we bounded to them. And really in disguise, it may come as there is no point to do anything. I don't have enough influence. Political systems respond to people. And through history, we have examples of successfully overcome extraordinary odds to achieve political change. Also, tipping points are not linear. The myth of, well, but we're compromising growth and profit. Hold on, let's look at this, where growth and profit, in fact, are going. Because if we look at that floods, just some figures from the Midwest in the US from 60 million in the first quarter of the year, literally down the drain. And for every 1% increase of heavy rainfall, we're losing up 2% of GDP. So that's water. But let's look at fire. And we know this is happening far and close, often enough. Just some, it's not only in California, yeah, but just some figures from 17 and 18 in California burned a quarter century profits. And we know some areas already are uninsurable. And if we look at globally, 1% of GDP goes up in flames. So that's water, fire. But then let's not forget that it's becoming more apparent our weaker and weaker value chains. Conflicts, war, epidemics, supply, logistics, Panama Canal, anyone? That's not long ago. Even some examples here of car companies that had to shut operations because they didn't have the parts. Right? So if we are to respond to change, if at regular intervals, the team reflects of how to become more effective and then tunes and adjusts accordingly, I think we are missing part of the picture. And then the top 5 that is too complicated. Yes, we're talking about the biosphere, but we don't have to do it alone. And also this is what is up for grabs. Right? Achieving just the Sustainable Development Goals, 12 trillion, up for grabs. So if really as Agilists we dare to enable, right? If our highest priority is early and continuous delivery of value, let's start with that. This is what's up for grabs. And so also I wanted to do a very quick mention that we know as Agilists as well, when looking at any challenge, we sort of have this narrow tendency or inertia to look at the problem quite narrowly. I think this visual explains really well in terms of what we are encountering with climate change, right? We have this carbon tunnel vision, and yes, each one of us, individual, household, company, country, city, whatever, we are to halve our emissions within 5 years and a little bit. So chop, chop. But aside of, as well as, we better think of biodiversity loss. We have to tackle overconsumption. And especially in complex adaptive systems with this narrow inertia, if you're looking at emission reductions, we are very easily falling complacent in our value chain. And the golden rule is, if something is too good to be true, it's probably because it is. So I want to mention the organization Stop the Traffic, which I collaborate with, and their sole mission is prevention of human trafficking and modern slavery. And this is closer than you think. It's in our food chain, in our energy, materials, devices, in the clothes that we wear, in the stuff that we use, and it's also in our healthcare system. And you guys have a session with Helen tomorrow that will touch a little bit more on this, but wanted to make a mention. Now, perspectives. Because being objective is not a default. Where we stand and what we see, it depends on where we sit. So 3 areas and perspectives for you to consider when you're tackling this conversation. So if you're looking and speaking with managerial sort of area, consider how the information is provided and how is that affecting in the way that they may allocate funds for the business and how they measure, demonstrate the impact to shareholders. When you're tackling and having the room investors, then consider how the information provided is going to affect the way that they think about capital budgeting. And the main metrics here, I try to put over there. Think about financial returns of the project, social impact, environmental impact, right? Pound terms or dollar or whatever. And then the third perspective, which is shareholders, right? Again, consider how the information is going to affect the way that they evaluate the impact and the decisions made by the business in both financial and ESGs. Right? So finance, where the money goes. So we covered a little bit before, but I also wanted to give you sort of 3 buckets, right? Because when there is no budget, let's look at this, where the money coming in and how does sustainable finance differ from the maybe more traditional discipline and half-baked finance, if I may say. I look at impact investment. So we have capital budgeting, right? So the investment decisions internal, that's per project, so investment basis. Look at also how you generate that social environmental impact and how can that be accounted for. Then you have the capital structure. That's how the different entities are going to source in capital, where the money comes and goes. Look at equity, debt, and things that generally are external of the organization. And also, don't forget, you have your working capital, right? That's inflows. You have outflows, different suppliers, wages. There's a lot of things that you can do. And especially in working capital, the timing, how you manage the timing, it can make a big difference. Oh no, we are out of time. Remember our privilege as Agile people. We have access and we have ease. So where do you want the world to go? How do you want to be part of it? What's between then and now? Therefore, what's next? So 3 things at lightning speed that you can get on with now. First, if you haven't checked yet, please go to the Agile Sustainability Manifesto. Take the pledge. Most importantly, leverage the principles to guide our decisions. I mean, this thing has been going on for more than 20 years. It's really up to us that we take our practice up a notch. 2, even if you're not in IT, I'm one of the Green Software Foundation champions, you have stuff like the impact framework, and also in the QR code, you can get for free a course on green software. And if you pass the exam, which I'm sure you will, you'll get a nice certification. But it's a really good base level. And technology really is no longer an industry, it's in a fabric layer of any business. So it's well worth base level for you to open awareness of what are the different things that we can account for when we design our solutions. Right. And then the last but not least, come and join us in one of the cohorts of the Agile Sustainability Practitioner Program. It's 4 weeks hands-on, and you really get not only with learning about circular economy, sustainable development goals, complexity science, but the practice in your context, right? We have no time to waste. So we're moving people from urgency to agency. This is how. Let's get on with it. Let me close with this thought. This is home. There are no boundaries. We all breathe the same air. This is our home, which is not ours alone.